couple more questions if we could just stay with this. I mean, like at night our house is 72, so it's not hot, and I'm older, so, you know. And our house during the days, you would keep it cool, okay? Again, all of a sudden I'll be fine, and then I'm hot again. So even though I'm working on something or doing something, I'm processing something. Thank you.
Even in the
Can I just say what emotions you're actually processing?
Of course.
Yep. And when you feel hot and cold, and this applies particularly, so I'm going to say some things to the women in the audience, right?
Hot and sorry.
Menopause.
Yes.
There is no such thing as menopause.
For real?
Oh, good.
Okay, cool. I like that.
But I'm not suggesting going off your patches. The reason why is because there's emotions that are triggering that response in your body at a certain age. And the emotions relate to femininity, sexual shame, and guilt. And what you'll find once you work your way through a lot of these emotions, and also emotions of feeling like you are dependent upon physical solutions for spiritual problems. And all of these emotions create a situation, a circumstance within your body that your body desires dependence on substances, whatever those substances are. And if I can just give you an experience of Natalie's during this process. Natalie had a hysterectomy through her life, and so she was on patches, on hormone patches for most of her life. And we started talking about, during the travel, she spent nearly 6 months with me travelling, and during the travels I started talking to her about the dependency upon these patches. And she'd get quite upset with me about it, saying that I'm a man and I wouldn't know what I'm talking about. And what I kept on reminding her is that every single thing that's happening within our body is emotional. Every single thing. So the pain you have in childbirth as a woman is emotional. The pain that you have with regard to once-a-month periods is related to emotions. And the pain that you have and the physical responses you have during menopause are also related to emotions. And they're related very much to the emotions, the generational emotions that most women have, because women generally through history have been treated very badly. And women generally through history have been treated badly in a number of different areas. Not just in sort of physically being treated badly or being put down emotionally, but also being treated badly sexually. And this multi-generational abuse that's gone on towards women has carried an emotional burden right down to our day today. And actually is within each of you ladies, it's within, as well as each of the men from a male point of view as well. There is also this same constant generational thing within the men as well. When you come to deal with those emotions, you will find that you'll get to a point where you feel like you do not need this kind of medication anymore. And you will actually go off it and you will feel stable. You won't go up and down emotionally. A lot of times, people get to menopause and they start feeling these up and down emotional swings, right? Very similar in many cases, if you think about it, to the emotional swings that you may have experienced when you were pregnant. Right? And the reason why these emotional swings occur during those times is because they're reminding you of your own femininity. That there are issues within that you are not wanting to deal with emotionally on those subjects. And the key is to go into those subjects and deal with them emotionally. Now, when Natalie went through a lot of these experiences, she actually released these emotions. What happened was that her body started changing and she started not needing what she thought she needed before. And now she's actually gone off of her hormone treatment altogether. Now normally, her son, Ben, Gabby's brother, commented that normally after a few days she would be a raging, what did he call her, a raging bitch, I think he called her. Something pretty good. He said normally after 2 days after she's gone off this medication, she would normally just be in this uncontrollable rage. And he's just totally blown away that 3 weeks or 4 weeks after, when he was with her, she was still like a loving mother that he'd never really met before. Right? And so this is what is ahead of you, and this applies to all medication, whatever it is. You'll find that there'll be a time in the future where you know you won't need it. And it will be because you've actually dealt with the emotions that create the need for it.
Is there something parallel for the men that you chat about too?
They go through that too.
Well, you think about a lot of men issues that men generally have. What are they related to generally?
Women.
What emotions, Michael?
Afraid about what she thinks.
No, go within. Like, you look at the stuff that's within men generally. It's like, you look at most men have some weight around the middle. Do they not? By the time they age, right? Most men have some weight around the middle. By the time they get to, in their 40s, most men are also experiencing sometimes some sexual issues, right? By the time they get into late, maybe 50s or 60s, often prostate starts to occur. These are all related to sexual issues that are unresolved, right? They're also all related to the treatment of women, actually, and how men generationally have treated women, not how you yourself specifically have treated them, but how there's this constant emotional damage that's being reflected down through the generations. So there are just as many problems for men as there are for women related to the masculinity and femininity issues. The issues that women face are more to do with how badly they've been treated. The issues that men face are more to do with how badly they've treated women. And so they are sort of like two ends of the same spectrum of different emotions that we've been worked through.
We started to say about like hot and cold when people like in Jan saying, and you said like general, and then like you feel hot or cold, and this, what does it mean? Because you started to say and interrupt you.
Remember, I mentioned that they are usually to do with shame issues, so, and a lot related to sexual shame issues. And hot and cold also very much anger and fear as well. So they are a combination. When a person's in a state of fear, all the extremities will start getting cold. So if you find you've got cold hands and cold feet, for example, and that's a fairly constant thing with you, then there's fears within you that you are not facing. Right? If you find that you often feel sort of a feeling of anger rise within you that you keep down, but you also feel like hot at night, or you feel like you need a fan on all the time, or you feel like you need the aircon down quite a lot, then it will usually be related to issues of shame or anger that you're actually experiencing with those things. The truth is that the human body is capable of coping with a large variety of temperatures without having clothing. And if we are if we are in a very, very, slim area, like anything below 22 and anything above 26 is no good, then what's actually going on is that there is emotions being triggered at those temperatures, and you need to allow yourself to go into those emotions rather than using the air conditioning thermostat. Right? So allow yourself to trigger these emotions. Anything that makes you uncomfortable generally has some fairly large emotions underneath them. And if you allow yourself to just go into your discomfort rather than avoiding your discomfort, you will find you'll be able to access whole groups of emotions that you are masking by being comfortable. The same applies, by the way, to food. Like many people find that 1 hour after the time to eat, and they're feeling like pretty antsy, right? Pretty upset. And if that's the case, my suggestion would be leave it 2 hours before you eat and really let yourself get into the emotion that's in there, because there's an emotion there that's causing you to get into that state. The body can cope with. The body actually can live on very, very minor amounts of food, and in fact, once you're in a condition of abundant with God, you actually will not need food if you don't want it. And so the body can live really, really easily through other sources of energy rather than food. If you feel like you must have food, then usually there's emotions driving that desire. Let yourself feel them and let yourself work through them. Yeah. Are we on the same subject?
No.
You got more on this one for a
Yeah.
while.
Oh.
I have a couple of questions for you. Now, you're talking about hot and cold the way you feel. All right? Like, I'll get specific. For myself, when I get ready to go to sleep or something, I think that I'm sort of chilly, but my former partner would say that I felt so hot that I would burn them. And this was a very consistent thing every time I go to sleep. And it didn't matter whether I lay down or I just actually fell asleep on the couch. They said just to touch my skin was burning. Am I dealing with something in that, or is it because I felt comfortable to myself?
Yeah, you're going to have to trust yourself. But there are obviously some things about that. If your body temperature is hotter than average, then there are always emotional reasons why. Right? Now, when your body temperature is hotter than average, you will actually probably feel colder in certain circumstances than the average person. Right? And the same goes with the opposite. If your body temperature is colder than average, you might feel hotter than certain people. But all of these things are based upon emotions within the soul, all of them. The key is to not intellectualize them, but rather just allow yourself to get into a state of discomfort. See, what we do nowadays is we're often uncomfortable, but what we do is we adjust our environment to make ourselves feel comfortable. So let's say, I'm allergic to cats, so what do?
Remove the cat.
Cats. I'm allergic to dog hair, so what do? Get rid of the dog. Don't like anything under 22 degrees, so what do? I move to Florida. That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
We create our environment to make ourselves more comfortable. The question becomes, why not firstly deal with the emotion that's creating that discomfort? Because if you do that, you won't be masking it with an action. There will be many times in your future progression where you'll be tempted to mask an emotion with an action to make you feel more comfortable. For example, the other day, I was in Barbados and I went swimming in the sea, and I was going swimming every day in the sea, but there was some emotions coming up, and I talked to some really evil spirits the day before as well, and there was a combination of events that occurred where I got stung by a jellyfish. It stung me right from here right the way down through my thigh as I swam over it. And I don't know if any of you have been stung by one, but for about the next 6 or 7 hours it was pretty painful. Now, I know there's a physical way for me to get out of that sting, right? And quite easy. But what I decided to do was to stay in it. Right? So it felt like the whole side of my body was burning. And I was crying and just stopping and letting myself feel all of my emotions from it. Right? Rather than choosing just to...
You get some Novocaine.
Or we on it or something, and it all just go away. So I attracted that event. That event was attracted by an emotion within me that I needed to deal with. So I allowed myself to go through that emotion, even though it was really painful for me at the time, in order to actually fully release that emotion.